some issues in the past couple of days with retrieving the video, and the minutes aren't finalized. So we're going to process March and tonight's at our next meeting.
Okay, sounds good. So let's move on to unfinished business.
Public comment.
Oh, sorry. Move on to public comment. Do I have any public comments?
We do. We have one public comment.
He's probably earned it.
Yes.
Yes.
There's no agenda item update on the trails then.
I can give you an update on the agenda item for the trails. Our consultant is underway in basically the look at the parcel kind of feasibility for the, I hope the mic's picking up, the stream bank and the environmental work that we had talked about before. That's currently underway. That hasn't finished. We need that to finish before we move on to the next step on our side. Okay. If you rush to drive home in this weather.
And Rob, do you have a
hang out for as long
timetable?
as you want.
Do you have a timetable when they might be finished?
We don't, unfortunately. I know it started back in May. I don't offhand know when it's going to finish. It shouldn't take that long. I'm guessing it's not done this month. If I had to guess, August. It's not a long exercise. It's the scope is a lot of field work, walking around the parks that we identified, which are, thanks, Taylor, Lackey, Green Space, Cooper Sandy at Bethany Providence, MCPP, and Hamby. We actually are also adding 2 more parks to their scope. We're in the process of doing that. We're adding the property on Hopewell. If you've heard about that transaction kind of being preserved, we're going to have them look at that. And I think there's one more park we're going to be adding to their scope. Primarily field work and primarily looking at whether the sorry, I'm repeating myself. 2 major points of that exercise. One is making sure that the recommendations from staff and the green print exercise on what areas should be preserved, either for an ecology reason or a cultural reason, or for whatever reason there is, making sure that an environmental professional has looked at that and agreed with the recommendations that staff has come up with. And then secondly, looking at all of the sites from a feasibility of a stream and wetland bank preservation angle. Sometimes there are opportunities for land that the city or county owns that can be similar to, if you've ever heard of a CUVA, a process for your property. There's a preservation angle towards the city and county owning and upgrading streams and wetlands on their property. And you can actually monetize that and use that as a way to allow other properties, either that you own, to do projects on that may impact other streams and wetlands, or potentially, depending on how we structure this, there are cases where some cities and counties have set up that bank and then sold credits to other neighboring municipalities for them to be able to move forward with their projects. So it's a way to kind of check. It's a way to kind of check a couple different boxes at the same time, where we know on these green spaces, there are areas that we're going to want to preserve and keep natural and not really draw much attention to or do anything with.
Just out of curiosity, how much are they being paid?
Can you say, sorry, I missed.
Just out of curiosity, what is their contract? What's
$40,000 or $50,000. It was relatively small from the public works end.
Okay, thanks.
So that's it for public comment.
Okay.
Unfinished business.
Yeah, we'll move on to unfinished business.
I feel like it's been a while since we've had a meeting. Thank you all for coming, braving the weather. I just checked text. It looks like John's still on the way, but I think Thomas is going to stay home.
Yeah.
So we're welcome, and I'll talk a little bit slow while John comes in here. It's been an extremely busy, Suzanne, you missed this. It's been a busy couple of months for staff here, to just be honest. We've got a bunch of different things going on and we're short staffed. I'm in a little bit less formal attire tonight, but you'll notice this might be my first MTAC meeting in jeans.
It's all good.
We're hiring, we're trying to backfill positions, and we're just a little bit behind on things that affected the minutes tonight. I put a lot of time into the presentation. The presentation's in very good shape, but a lot of other things putting out the agendas, updating the websites. I'm not as on it as Emily has, and we're making progress to get that back into 100% efficiency.
Is there something that we can do to help?
Thank you, but no, we've got it. It's just going to take a little bit more time for us to fill empty seats. I was telling Phil before you walked in, we're doing a little bit of reorg here on the city side. Sarah's being promoted. I'm being promoted.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's anticipating a lot of significant development coming in on the private side, primarily in the Deerfield area over the next 12 months.
Yeah.
So we're trying to better solve some of those really difficult issues by getting the public works folks and the community development planners talking more.
Okay.
It's going to be, we've talked about this before. Stay tuned with what's coming in on 9 and in that Windward kind of Deerfield Morris area. There's lots of exciting things that we're seeing at concept level that will be coming out publicly in the next 3 to 6 months.
Okay.
I don't have any other city staff updates. Wasn't sure if there's anything on your end that you wanted to talk through. Otherwise, I can give you an update on our blueprint discussion from last week.
I don't have anything. Nope. I
So
think we
next
can move on.
item, thank you, Brian, for attending that night. John was also there. I thought we had a very good, positive, shorter than I expected discussion with council about the blueprint updates. They supported 99% of what we had always talked about and proposed based on your motion. There was one issue that came up that I wanted to kind of walk through with you tonight. And if there's a consensus to make a change and vote on that tonight and make a motion, that's fine. If this is something that you want to consider and come back next meeting and make a motion there, that's fine as well. We'll just be, from staff's end, we'll be on a little bit of a pause until we hear what you want to do with this one particular issue. So what came up based on the map? Here's the map that you approved and authorized us to move forward with. And I've got 3 sections in red that were circled. And there's one consistent element for all 3 of these segments. They're all involving Fulton County schools. So these were not segments that you added to the map. These were segments that were already on the map as adopted by council in 2007. I'm going to get into a little bit detail on each segment. This is the southern one. City Hall is, if you can see my cursor, right here, bottom left of the screen. So we're looking at the area behind Crabapple Crossing Elementary, behind Northwestern Middle, and weaving its way across School Drive and around the baseball field to kind of produce a pedestrian connection from Heritage down here over to Freemanville up in the top right. The second segment on the map was in the middle of the screen. Cowart Road is a gravel road that doesn't have a lot of vehicles on it. It's actually partially closed, so you wouldn't really know it's there unless you live very close by. But there was thought back in the day of creating a pedestrian connection coming down Cowart, weaving around the back of Summit Hill Elementary, and ultimately connecting over to Providence Road. And then the third segment is something that Brian and I talked a lot about before the meeting. And Brian, you may help me explain a little bit of the history on this one. For those of you who haven't lived in Milton in forever, this parcel along Freemanville is directly south of White Columns, the public section where the golf course is. It's 100+ acres of undeveloped land currently owned by Fulton County Schools that was actually the originally thought location for Cambridge High. Before Cambridge High was moved over to the location it's now. So many years ago, all 3 of these segments were discussed in public, thought about. We may end up wanting to do a pedestrian connection on these connections someday, and that's why they're on the map. The reason why it came up with council last week is we were contacted by our Fulton County School Board member, Lily, who expressed some concern that all 3 of these segments aren't necessarily something that Fulton County Schools supports at this time. We were also contacted by a couple of residents who were specifically concerned about this segment on the screen currently because there was some discussion back when Brian was involved in the trail prioritization plan. There was actually language in the plan that I found that I was not aware of, and that's this quote on the screen that I have currently. The vacant property owned by Fulton County Schools on Freemanville Road was considered for interior trails during the early phases. It was a topic of discussion in their group meeting along with Birmingham Park and Green Space Bond Fund properties. I'm skipping ahead. Due to the fact the property is not owned by the city, it was also a priority that city investment made on the property should be minimal. So there was a sentiment from that group and in the public at that time around 2020 that this segment wasn't a priority, but it never got deleted from the map.
So basically, the discussion was that the city would have to lease the land from the school, and we would have to do the build out. And it was like, well, that's just ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense. And with the Wood Road section, I know that was kind of a hot topic for some people. The global idea was, gosh, we own the golf course. And so as that comes down, wouldn't it be nice to have some connection, which unfortunately would probably involve maybe a tunnel under Freemanville, which, you know, was kind of one of those pie in the sky things and stuff. So, you know, I think, you know, for me, I'm a little shocked about the school board's position on the other two parcels because, gosh, you know, I would think about getting the kids to walk to school and giving them a safe access. I mean, they, you know, but, you know, I think that it's certainly fine to take them off since they're not interested in doing anything and it doesn't involve any long-range issues with us. So
From staff's perspective, we would need their support to do any of those segments
Right.
anyway.
Right.
And if they don't, from our perspective, there are so many other good segments on this map that are expensive.
right.
If these aren't supported by Fulton County Schools, we would support ultimately removing them. And that's the question I have for you today. Is there consensus that we want to go ahead and propose removing those segments from the map? Is this a big enough issue that you want to think about it? Or do we want to leave them on and see what council thinks?
Make a motion, we remove them.
I second.
I agree. Yeah,
Good
I
deal.
think focus on the land we already own.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's ridiculous that we'd have to rent the land
Oh,
out.
I know. It makes no sense.
The question I wish we had an answer to is what will ever happen to that property? I can't tell you. All I know is what Brian told me that night was that it was the original purpose was Cambridge High. That didn't happen. What will end up happening there? It's anybody's guess. Could Fulton County Schools do something with it? Maybe. Could they sell it to someone else? Maybe. I don't think it would ultimately, I'd have to check with our planners here, but I'm sure it's probably zoned for a school use. So I don't think it's likely that they'd be able to drop in a brand new subdivision here, but how all that ends up transpiring over time, we don't know.
Did Lily elaborate at all on her objection?
I didn't talk with her. I heard that third hand through Sarah, and I believe she reached out to the mayor.
Okay. Just curious.
All right.
Well, that pretty wraps up our meeting for tonight.
I'm going to catch John up because I don't think it'll take that
Yeah.
long.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and actually, John, you heard most of this. We were giving the rest of the committee a recap of our council meeting from last week. I did a little bit more research on the segments that involve the Fulton County Schools and wanted to make sure everyone in the room knew. And I wasn't aware of that night actually at council. The segments in question are the 3 red circles on the map. And I've got a little bit more detail on each of those in the following slides. So this is the southern segment interacting with the elementary school, middle school, and high school close to City Hall. The second central middle segments around Summit Hill Elementary. And the northern segment has some history. It was actually off 100 plus acres of undeveloped land off Freemanville owned by Fulton County Schools that originally was thought to be the location of Cambridge High, which is why we had talked about and originally kind of envisioned a pedestrian connection there. Before the council meeting, we were contacted by Fulton County Schools and ultimately brought up to speed a little bit on the history of this and the discussion that happened previously, and told by Fulton County Schools that they don't support either of these three connections ultimately going through their property. They absolutely want to encourage kids walking to school and using buses, but trails like this directly through their property, they would appreciate not being on a map like this. So from staff's perspective, our thought was, well, if we ever did anything like this, we would need their support anyway. If that support isn't there, given how many other really good connections we have on the map already, from Sarah and I's perspective, we would support the process of removing those three segments from the blueprint map, going through the same timeline, same process we would for adding the pink segments to the map. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you just missed the vote in the motion. So staff is going to process removing those three segments simultaneously with adding the pink lines.
I would also just like to share with everyone else that Rob did a masterful job presenting the trail plan to the council, and very, very proud, and thank you so much. You did an outstanding job on that.
Thank you. You made it easy. There wasn't a lot of angst, contentious discussion on your end. I kind of got the consensus that you were all behind this, so that made my job easy. And to be fair, we're still not through the entire process. So I've got the code ordinance modification process, which requires 2 readings. So it's great that we went through in reports and presentations and got a lot of head nods, but we're going to have to get a couple of more approvals before it's all said and done.
And thank you guys for attending the meeting and being our representatives, because
We looked good.
We did.
Nice.
And we were ready.
Represented.
That's right.
That's great. Thanks.
Next item. Yes, next
Yeah.
item. So this was a request from several of you earlier this year when we started talking about wrapping up the blueprint update. Suzanne, this was part of the meeting that you attended with Sarah and I think
Yeah.
the mayor. There was some interest and talk about prioritization of this map and how we're able to leverage the existing funding that's already there for sidewalks and start moving forward with ultimately building stuff on the map. And there's a lot to this. I'm going to give you a lot of information here tonight. Hopefully not bore you to death, but there's a lot going on here. And from staff's perspective, we really want to make sure that we're giving you the entire picture. The key document, and that was the email that I'm hoping most of you saw a couple of days ago. It's important for us and for you to recognize that we're not just creating priorities out of thin air. Right now, we would be talking about changing kind of our marching orders that we received from our council and through a public process. And that's the document you see on the right. Those are our current priorities. Brian's very aware that it took a lot of time, a lot of effort from a resident-driven volunteer group, a little bit of a consultant support of many public meetings to get to the document as you see on the right. Anything we do tonight and ultimately vote on in the future would be changing the priorities that are in that document. So for us, it's important for you to understand what those priorities are now. And if you haven't read that document, I would recommend it. It's not that long. It's kind of broken into areas of the city. So it took the map and it kind of boiled everything down into the colored areas you see on the screen, the Crabapple area, the Deerfield area, and then 3 of our parks. And for each of those areas, it identified what they called Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, and Tier 4 projects. I'm not going to go through each of these individually. There are a lot of really good projects on these maps. I can answer any questions you have about any of them in particular. What I do want to tell you is that we have, since this was adopted back in 2020, we have made a lot of really good progress on a lot of the Tier 1 and Tier 2 projects in the Crabapple area and in the Deerfield area. So these first 2 pages, for example, I'm going to zoom in so we can actually read this. Just looking at the Deerfield page, for example, that crossing treatment on Bethany Bend at Serenade was built a couple of years ago. Fill in Bethany Bend gaps on the north side. That hasn't happened yet. Crossing treatment on Cogburn, that's going to be under construction next year. We've been making very good progress, not really into the tier 3 and tier 4 yet, but focusing more on the tier 1 and the tier 2, specific to the Deerfield page and the Crabapple page. We have not been putting a lot of emphasis and priority yet on the 3 passive parks. So Birmingham Park had its own section, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. For those of you who have been on the committee the entire time, you remember our discussion a couple of years ago about Birmingham Park and wanting to try and elevate that and get some work done up there with how we would prioritize that existing funding. That existing funding is still there. That is still a priority from staff and from mayor and council, and I expect probably from you too. We're not going to have to really tackle that because that's it's in a waiting stage, waiting to see some other larger initiatives go through. There are some really big projects, the active park. There are a couple of things that we need to make sure from the city's end and from the financial end that we've got enough funding to support those before we're able to start tackling some of the other priorities like Birmingham Park.
And can I ask about funding? So when you're saying for us to prioritize, are we looking at funding that we're getting from external sources and then we supplement to finish the project? Or are we looking at money towards projects that we are solely funding alone? Or is it both?
A little
Okay.
bit. In the case of Birmingham Park, and the reason why we had the discussion a couple of years ago, there's $1 million that we have already earmarked for it that is waiting for some other things to go first before we decide how we want to spend that $1 million.
Okay.
And a couple of slides in the future, I'm going to be showing you what we currently have on the books ready to go, thought towards building sidewalks and trails, just not sure exactly which project to spend it on. So we're going to have situations, and that's what I thought you wanted to learn more about was we don't want to go ask for money. We want to figure out how to spend money we already have and make sure that we're spending the money we already have, especially if it's already dedicated towards sidewalks on an important project that's a priority that we can all get behind.
Right. So I guess are any of these projects where the external funding might disappear if we don't use it before a certain date?
No.
Okay.
And for this exercise, we're really only talking about money we currently have that's already been earmarked, like Birmingham Park. We're talking about money that we already have that hasn't been assigned to a specific project, and that's when T-SPLOST comes into effect. You'll see numbers in a couple of slides where we have $3 million that we envision, based on what we told the public back in 2017, that we intend on using on sidewalks and trails. We just haven't yet figured out exactly what to spend that $3 million on. Then there's going to be the third step of what important projects do we want to prioritize and keep in mind moving towards next year when we're starting to work on our next T-SPLOST list as more of a priorities for, let's say, moving forward in the 1 to 5 year range, not necessarily immediately.
Sorry, I need to ask another question just to be clear in my mind. So when is the money allocated for next year's project? Is that in August of this year?
So our FY goes from October to September, which is a little bit weird for a calendar in most governments. So we normally are going through our budget process around August or September. So for the next fiscal year, which will be that October to next September timeframe.
So do we need to make decisions now for the allocation for next year? Or are we looking only for trying to allocate the money for this
I'm going to look for
fiscal
guidance
year?
on that. I think the answer is going to be no, because I think when I show you we have $3 million already sitting there, we're going to start trying to think, okay, what's the best use of that $3 million? We don't need to ask for anything in August, September, asking for new money coming out of the general fund. We've got T-SPLOST money already set aside for sidewalks and trails that when we agree on how we want to recommend spending that, that's something that staff can bring to mayor and council and say, we discussed the trail network with MTAC. We have done public input as you see on the screen, and we have identified segment 1 and segment 2 as corridors that we'd like to move forward into design and start spending some of the $3 million towards. That's it, as simple as that would be.
Okay.
We get approval on that, and we'd be issuing requests for proposals at this point, and then we'd be starting to kind of launch into the design phase.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Has the Deerfield Development Initiative changed or affected the priorities for that Deerfield area from a trails or priorities or?
I would answer that as yes, absolutely. Just because the pages you see from the prioritization planner from 2020, and there was a lot of staff effort, consultant effort, and public input on that trail map that I don't have on the screen. That's as recent as a couple of months ago. So I do think it's safe to say I wouldn't necessarily replace the material you have on the screen with the 2025 map, but I do think there are going to be likely some good ideas coming out of that plan that don't necessarily appear on tier 1 or tier 2 that are things that we should consider. Unfortunately, I don't have that map for you tonight. That's something that we can talk about more.
And Bob Buscemi, he's still involved with the city or?
Yes.
Okay, because with that Deerfield, when we were doing that comprehensive plan, he was really big about pushing the developer to include internal trails on the whole thing. So I'm sure if he's involved, I'm sure that's going to be a beautiful, well laid out.
Every single major parcel that we're looking at in the area, and there are 6 or 7 of them, all have a component, depending on where they're located on, and whether there's you remember from that map, there are different levels of trails.
Right.
There's a public kind of transportation component of the trail, but then there's also the 4-foot gravel path through the woods trail you're there because you enjoy walking in nature. You're not there as a mobility exercise. Yes, they're scattered through the entire district. Some parcels are more focused on one, some parcels are more focused on the other. They all have some kind of link back to that big trail map that Bob's extremely involved in.
And, gosh, 3 million is not a lot. But does anyone have any connections with Cambridge or Milton High School?
I do with Milton.
Particularly, their running track, because
Cross country.
it would be really interesting to see what their needs are. So as we start talking about trails, that we could, think about incorporating that if it works, because gosh, we've got world-class education facilities. If we can really supplement that with what they need, that would be.
So I can speak to Cambridge. I know that they were looking to build some sort of trail be through Stone Creek Church and go behind, connecting to Cambridge. So that way they I'm pretty
Heard
sure
about
that
that
that's
too.
already in the works. So I think that
is
really
in the
good.
works.
Yeah.
Stone Creek is one of the parcels that we're talking
Yeah.
I
with.
remember hearing about that.
But just, throwing it out there, that would be.
And I think, forgot his name, the communications person, Greg, he definitely has contacts with the high schools.
If you'd like us to do everything we can to reach out to the cross-country teams and
Yeah,
see
I
if
think
there's-
that, me personally, I think is we're looking at this and coming up with priorities. Making sure that the kids have, and it may be that if they already have this in the plan, then maybe there's just connections that we can facilitate with some of those things to provide a wide enough,
So they
path in that area and stuff. Just because I see them just
Yeah.
running along the
Scary.
sidewalk or the road. And it's
running
like,
in the
oh,
road
gosh,
is scary, especially when you see a group of 10
yeah.
or 15 of them all together running in the road.
Yeah.
And they're
It's-
not paying
Yeah, so
attention.
if we could,
Right.
if we could reach out.
They're 14 years old.
Milton does
Um,
have trails behind the school. They've got several cross-country trails behind the school, but maybe extending those, I'll find out more.
Brian, to your comment about $1 million feeling like a lot, but $1 million doesn't go very far. The last bullet on the screen, the concrete sidewalk that we built on Mayfield, just up the road with the black fence up to Freemanville, that's recently
Which looks
constructed.
great. You guys did a great job.
1,500 feet for $1 million. That's the
Fair.
level of
Man, we're not.
that's how quickly we spend
That
money when
answers
it
your
comes
question.
to, and to be fair, that's a concrete trail that requires a lot more thinking on the design end if we wanted to go gravel or something else. But
Dirt. Can we do
$3 million, $3.9 million, we may be able to tackle maybe a 3/4 of a mile to a mile segment. But that's about as far as we're going to be able to go with the existing funding.
And how's the price of asphalt compared to concrete?
Believe it varies. Asphalt is very, very, very dependent on oil prices. So as oil goes up and down, there's times where asphalt's more expensive than concrete. There's times where asphalt's less expensive
Wow.
than concrete.
Hurry up.
Drill, baby, drill.
Normally,
Or,
normally, I'd almost say 9 times out of 10, concrete's going to be more expensive, but concrete has that steady up and asphalt's kind of all over the map. Very high variability throughout the year, just based on how oil and gas are going.
Needs to be free wood chips. You know, the chipping, they'll just give you free chips. We're just
Over in
going to
my
do
house is chocolate.
wood
Well,
chips.
got a lot of trees down in there in the
Well,
way.
yeah, but everything comes down to maintenance and everything,
Sure.
because that's why with the
Probably.
very first trail committee, we were like, oh, we want gravel. And I remember David Chatham was like, that's too high maintenance, asphalt. And so when it comes to the choice of trail surface, I think concrete was perfect for that location. But especially as we get into the interior and stuff like that, and especially if it does become a surface for the schools, and they may have, maybe they want gravel for a section, or at a minimum, maybe asphalt, because, I know with me running, gosh, I would much rather prefer asphalt over concrete.
It's better on your knees.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Well, I think a good test has been the little trail between White Collins and Birmingham Falls Elementary, because they put, I don't think it wasn't gravel. I think it was like mulch or something and it's been kind of overgrown. It's overgrown a little bit now. So yeah.
Yeah, don't take
Has it worked out well, or has it not worked out
I've seen
well?
some students using it,
Okay.
but not all,
I'm
probably not as
I've
much
heard
as
about it.
it's-
I'm not very familiar with it.
And the whole design of the gravel trails, it has to be done properly. But even with that and a proper compaction and stuff like that, you got erosion issues and then upkeep. So,
So yeah, would you mind having Greg just reach out to?
Sure. I can bring that to next meeting.
Yeah, Cambridge and Milton, so we can.
And I'll reach out to Jason Alberici. He's on the Parks and Rec Committee. He's the CAA president for Cambridge, the Athletic Association. His daughter Ella runs cross country, so he's got a lot in it. So.
Okay.
I'll
reach
That'll
out
give
to
us
him.
some guidance around
I'll
those
email
areas.
both Greg and Tom, our Rec and Parks director. He may have some contacts there for the
Yep.
PRAB and see what we can get as far as some ideas from both schools.
Sure. I can find out more too.
My material for tonight, again, was just kind of screenshots of that prioritization map. I really want to make sure you understand what our marching orders have been, as well as I think it's perfectly reasonable for us to look at what the public said they support as far as the new additions that are on the green print, that are on the blueprint map.
I can say for me, I think anything that might complete a loop, any small section or something, or prioritizing around safety for kids is kind of where I would want to go.
The connection E jumps out at me every time I see this map, and that's Brian, the New Providence, finishing that segment of the trail that we always talk about going west of the circle. That's the gap that received the most support when we did our public input. That makes a lot of sense. It's going to be a little bit challenging with the subdivision. I think it might be Hawthorne Manor. There's a subdivision there on that side of Providence that we want to make sure we're building the trail in a way that we respect that that's their entrance of their homes and wanting to accomplish both the need for the public to walk there and then the respect that this is ultimately their property and they care about how their front entrance looks.
So if we were to do E, prioritize that, how much of the budget will,
I can
That
bring
take-
that next meeting.
Right.
I haven't looked at that yet. I do, just looking at it on the screen, I think we can deliver that within the 3.9. I'm not sure how much it's going to take.
yeah,
I'd have to spend a little bit more time looking into, I'd assume that we're going the asphalt route there because we've
Right,
got
right,
asphalt on New
right.
Providence, and that would kind of make sense from a continuity perspective, which means that we would need a little bit of engineering effort, more so than if we were going gravel. I'd have to hire a company. We'd have to figure out if we've got the room and the right of way to build it, or whether I have to purchase land or easement from individual property owners. That takes time. And if I'm impacting one property owner, that's 6 months to a year of negotiation. That's just us wanting to be, it's a priority for the city to be negotiating in good faith and wanting to make sure that we're doing everything we can to be reasonable when we're purchasing property from someone. And we're not the big bad state DOT government that just does what they want.
could you also speak to I and J area? That looks like it might close a loop too, or no?
I agree. I am going to pull up the map.
Yeah, the Red Road with Summit. I mean, I love that. I mean, I've run Red for so many years and stuff, and it's just so dangerous.
Yeah, well,
And
safety
so I
should
think-
definitely be a priority.
But I think that with the developments around there, that would be nice.
Challenge.
It's a little bit tricky to see how far north that segment I goes. I'm looking at the map. I'm not sure whether it goes all the way up to Chicken Creek or not, but J appears to be Red Road. That I'm actually going to have to get back to you on. Red Road actually might be spoken for and taken care of by a project we've got in the works, and we may
Okay.
not have to worry about
Great, let's
spending
check
our
it
money
out.
on that one. I need to get back to you.
Okay, sounds good.
Any other questions about material in the prioritization plan? And my expert on that is Brian, since he was on the committee, or any just discussion on how we're going to get through the prioritization process. I put a couple of bullets here at the very end, just as general background information. Again, we are talking about 3.9 million.
Yeah,
We're thinking about T-SPLOS money that is already there. And because we're thinking about T-SPLOS money, that comes with restrictions.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to take T-SPLOS money and do some of those passive park recommendations from the prioritization plan. I'm restricted on how I can spend it. It's usually going to be a trail that's parallel to the road, generally within the road right of way, and not more of a park use off alignment, kind of either through a power line easement or something like that. Got a little bit of flexibility on that, but the general rule is I need to be close to a road for T-SPLOS.
That's good to know.
3.9 million available. You see the list on the screen. The bullets under that amount were projects that we had thought about and put in a list when T-SPLOS was first passed in 2017. So first, sidewalks on Bethany Bend. We had looked at Bethany both, and I'll outline that for you. We were looking at, just to show you here, Bethany, we were looking at some sidewalks on Cogburn heading back to the roundabout at Hopewell. If you remember, Cogburn is where we're going to be starting construction on our trail next year. Cambridge High being here on the southeast corner. So that would be an extension of that trail west from Cogburn over to Hopewell. There's also been a lot of discussion about Bethany east of 9. This segment here from just east of 9 down to Morrison McGinnis Ferry, where the traffic light is. There's been some discussion. That's where we built the mini roundabout a year or so ago. There's been a lot of outcry interest from subdivisions along Bethany to try and reduce speeds, make it safer for us to walk. Ultimately look at building some sidewalk and trail segments, but probably doing a little bit more than that. Try and create a little bit more of a residential feel of the road, slow people down, try and divert large trucks to
Yes,
use other roads.
That's needed.
So that corridor is going to be a capital project someday, but it's probably going to be more than just a sidewalk, which is why we weren't sure that spending some of our 3.9 million towards just a sidewalk on that corridor made sense right now, because it's probably going to need a little bit more thought.
As far as I know, I thought the sidewalk is pretty complete until you get towards the end of the roundabout where the new Montessori school is.
Uh-huh.
Is that the only area that needs to be? I thought it was.
I don't have that map in front of me.
Yeah.
I know that there's portions of side segments on both
Yeah.
sides.
Mhm.
So there may be
You
a
have to
couple
cross over.
of situations where all we need to build is a short segment with a safe crossing to get from one side to the other. There may be a couple of sections where we don't have sidewalk on either side, and it's a 500-foot to 1,000-foot, figuring out which side of the road it needs to be on and pouring new sidewalk.
And Rob,
I don't think you have sidewalk from 9 all the way down to the roundabout at Strickland. I definitely think there's some gaps there.
Okay.
and where's the connection to the Greenway supposed to be eventually?
So connection to the Greenway will be ultimately in Forsyth County, over towards, there's a park here, Union Hill Park, and there's going to be a connection from trails that are on McGinnis Ferry itself to the Greenway. I don't have a diagram here showing you exactly how that works, but trust me, it's happening in this general area. For Milton residents to get there, it's primarily going to be I'm not sure why that's coming up, what our connection to that trail is going to look like. You can follow my cursor. Cambridge High right here. We're going to have a trail along the entirety of Cogburn on the left side here, where North Park is, picking up those residences, picking up North Park. We're going to have a trail along Webb from Cogburn all the way past 9 to Morris. Then we're going to have a trail on Morris from the roundabout at Webb up to the crossing into Forsyth County line near the signal at Bethany Bend. And then that's where the current construction starts. If you've been through there, Georgia DOT is widening McGinnis Ferry to 4 lanes and putting in a new interchange with ramps at 400 there. On both sides of McGinnis Ferry, there's going to be trails that would connect us all the way to the Greenway.
Nice. And when you say trails, I know it'll be a 10-foot wide, are you, thinking concrete, or do we have a choice to make it asphalt, or?
It's too late for any of what I just described to make it anything but concrete.
Okay.
I don't necessarily think it's going to be concrete everywhere in Milton, but yes, the GDOT project is definitely concrete. The Morris widening that we're under construction on right now is concrete. The trail on Webb and the trail on Cogburn that will start construction next year are also concrete.
On Bethany Bend, where those new homes are going in,
Yes,
will they have to build some sort of sidewalk?
yes, they will.
Great.
So that's a less of a gap that we have to fill someday.
Mhm.
One of the benefits of properties like that. That's just for everyone else's knowledge. That's this area here. It's been cleared if you drive by it.
I'm pretty sure, I'm looking at Bethany Bend now. I'm pretty sure that, except for that little bit towards, right before the roundabout,
Mhm.
I think we're clear all the way to Route 9. Like,
Okay.
I'm kind of,
I'll have to go back and look at what the thought of for the original scope of that. It could be that with the speeds that we're seeing on Bethany,
yeah.
yes, we can provide safe crossings, but there may have been an interest to go ahead and do sidewalks on both sides.
Yeah, it could be, because you do have to cross over to get in. And if the traffic that is going to increase as that highway exit opens.
There's been a lot of, this is way before I started with the city, there's been a lot of fear that when those ramps on 400 open at McGinnis Ferry, that a byproduct of the heavy trucks and the freight, they're going to start using that interchange to access State Route 9
Yeah.
is going to be using Bethany.
So I guess question, the roundabout outside of Bethany South and Bethany North is pretty narrow. You know, if
At Bethany Creek, the subdivision,
yeah,
near 9,
yeah.
that was intentional.
Right, it's really narrow. So can trucks get through
we
that?
actually did that on purpose. Yes, trucks, fire trucks, every school buses can all navigate it. The purpose behind, and I might be able to, I'm not sure whether that's going to pull up on aerial or not. Let's find out. Well, that's not recent, but when I do this, we'll see. No, unfortunately, it's not there. So when we do roundabouts, the area, not the landscaped area where you see the grass, but that ring around it, that's sometimes red, sometimes tan, usually concrete. The entire purpose of that is for the backs of large vehicles to go across when they're making those turns. So it's sized. That width is intentional to make sure that the trucks can make their way around.
So could a big shipping, like trying to get off a tractor trailer kind of thing, can they get through there or not really?
If they're good drivers, yes.
Oh, okay.
If they're good drivers, we see issues all the time. We've seen videos of cars going too fast and ending up in our circles. So it's very dependent on the skill of the driver, whether they're paying attention.
Okay.
We've had issues of not necessarily at Bethany Creek, at other roundabouts in the city where a large truck was pulling a trailer and going too fast around a corner and did damage to one of our median islands or scraped some of the concrete on the center island. And there's always occasionally, there's drivers that don't know what they're doing, and we usually can't catch them because by the time we know about it, they're long gone.
Is there any plan to have signage that they don't want trucks to go through those roads, turn to deter them, I mean, take them a major?
I could spend an hour just talking about truck route enforcement. It's a
sure.
really big deal. I wish I had my police chief here. Their ordinance-wise on the city code, and this is very consistent across the state. Every city and county does it this way.
Okay.
There are a specific list of roads in our ordinance that trucks are allowed to drive on. And there's only about 6 or 7 in the city, believe it or not. I don't want to quote that list because I don't have them offhand, but they're the state routes, and there may be 2 or 3 others that by ordinance, trucks are only allowed to use these roads.
Okay.
But there's an exception to it. And the exception is they're also allowed on any other road in the city as long as they could prove, if pulled over, that they need to be traveling on that road to get to their origin or their destination. So it depends on the type of truck usually for whether the police is able to enforce and pull them over. Because if it's a moving truck going to Bethany Creek to move a new family in, well, obviously they need to be on Bethany Bend to access that, and there's nothing they can do. But if they're construction equipment, or if they're hauling dirt to a junkyard and things like that, we do have the ability to keep them on that specific list of truck allowed roads in Milton. Bethany not being one of them. Our police are out on there all the time, especially with all the construction on McGinnis Ferry, trying to enforce the trucks to, you can see my network here. All the construction is happening right here. Typically having to get over to 9 to either go north or south. So we try to get them to go more towards Morris and Webb to get to 9 than using Bethany through a residential area to get up to 9.
Right. I know, I'm off Taylor Road. We have that sign, like trucks are not, I guess, not permitted on Taylor Road, but I don't see that sign I don't see those signs very often.
If you're seeing it and it's an issue, now that you've told me about it, I'll make sure that we have, the first thing that usually police asks us for when we hear about complaints about trucks is is there a sign that says it's not
Yeah,
allowed?
that's the only
'Cause some-
sign I've seen. Mhm.
Sometimes a very reasonable response from the trucks was, I didn't realize it was not
Sure.
restricted and I won't do it anymore. And we
Mhm.
would normally let them off the hook and make sure that obviously keep enforcing it, but we would give them the benefit of the doubt if they told us they didn't know. We get rid of that ability as soon as we put up a sign at the beginning, and like we've done on Bethany, specifically saying trucks over certain weight or certain size
Not
should not
permitted.
be using the road.
Along those lines, I've seen the truck route signs. I wonder if there's value in trying to just
Reroughing them with a truck
lay
sign,
that
yeah.
out.
We've done a little bit of both. We've tried to identify where they should be, and we've tried to tell them where they shouldn't be. It's a constant battle. It's not just Milton. Every city in the metro area is fighting, wanting to allow the Amazon drivers and everything we have as far as providing us goods and services expeditiously, but also wanting to be respectful of especially driving through residential areas
area.
like
Mhm,
Bethany.
For sure.
In the beginning, you were talking about the portion of Bethany Bend going past, is that past Kings Ridge to Hopewell?
Yes. So that was identified specifically on, that was actually a tier 1 or tier 2 project. If I go back to the prioritization plan, Deerfield area. No, sorry. The eastern segment, tier 2, fill in Bethany Bend sidewalk gaps on north side. That yellow line there, that was identified as a tier 2 project in the Deerfield area for the prioritization plan. We did look at tier 3, this yellow line here, sidewalk on north side of Bethany Bend west of 9 there. That was also out.
And that section might be modified once we learn more from the people at the school, because Kings Ridge has some sidewalk there, might be filling in the gap to North Park or something. And so
We're talking about that segment right there. From Cogburn to Hopewell. So it sounds like next meeting, you'll be thinking about these segments while we're adjourned. We'll come back. I'm sure you'll probably have some more questions. I'll do everything I can to reach out to Greg and to Tom and use his Park and Recs and school contacts to see if we can get a little bit of input on what some good suggestions would be from either from the schools or from the cross-country teams or both.
Great work, Rob. Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you so much.
That was a lot. It's going to be a little bit more time to just kind of work through this. It's important. We want to make sure that we've vetted all of the previously thought good ideas and make sure that we really have something that we can get behind when we go ask council that we want to move forward on this, whatever that segment looks like.
And I was just going to say, I know council wants to move forward with, the money's already appropriated, so.
I've heard it from a couple of them. You probably heard it in that
Yeah.
meeting with the mayor as well. There's definitely interest on the elected official side to now that we're under construction on Morris, we're under construction on the Webb and Cogburn Trail. They want to know, okay, what's next?
When we look at this report, I know it's
build.
dated 2020, and then we look at the timeline of these different tiers. Did that kind of, the clock start 2020?
Yes.
When we look from 2 to 5 years and on? Okay.
Yes. So yeah, theoretically, we should have tier 2 done by now.
Right. Yeah.
And if you look at the if you looked at the Crabapple and Deerfield tier 1 and tier 2 lists, most of them are done. Most of them are either done or there's a good reason why they haven't. For example, there's one in here that I wanted to talk about. Here we go. T-Splosh 2, our $1.9 million. Another bullet on that list was Highway 9 streetscape enhancements. Everyone knows we need pedestrian help on State Route 9. I think it's a really bad idea to spend time in this committee thinking about sidewalks on there, given that we're getting ready to widen it, that we need to kind of think of that as that problem that's been solved. It's just going to take a while. Spending any of our money on State Route 9 right now would kind of be a throwaway. Is one specific segment that we're talking to one of our council members on and trying to get district approval for, to do a very short-term gravel connection for the next 3 to 4 to 5 years until construction starts, just for a very short-term measure for a large subdivision to get down to Publix. But beyond that, throwing any kind of money out there right now would be throwaway.
So the money that's not used on that particular project, do we then consider allocating that to like the next tier? We don't need to hold that money aside thinking at some point we're going to have that project. We just need to move forward and start tackling the next priority, right?
So the projects in the prioritization plan that haven't had any effort put into yet aren't funded.
Okay. But we can't use the funding that would have been, am I wording that correctly? So like the Highway 9 sidewalks, if we're not going to do that project and the other projects have not been funded yet, do we still have that money set aside that we can use?
The available funding that we already have earmarked towards sidewalks and trails is this 3.9 million here. That's the bucket that we're talking about, identifying either something from the prioritization plan or something from the blueprint map, or it appears in both documents as our next major initiative that we want to push forward. I hope I'm being clear in answering your
You are,
question.
yeah, no, that answers my question. Thank you.
So that 3.9 million is only for building sidewalks, right? And stuff. It's not, if you wanted to do signage or something along the sidewalk, would that fall in that?
It is T-SPLOST money that when we voted on it and showed the public the referendum in 2016 that they voted yes, part of the bigger pot of money was specifically set aside towards sidewalks. There was originally a much bigger list than what you see on the screen, and some of that money has been spent. What I'm telling you tonight is that there's 3.9 left in that bucket that we had originally planned towards sidewalks. And the bullets on the screen are the remaining projects on that original list that haven't been advanced forward yet.
Okay.
Awesome.
I think I don't have anybody else have any additional questions?
That's all I had tonight. As you think about this more, please call, email. I know that was a lot.
We're not meeting in July.
I wanted to talk through and make sure that we are all on the same page on that. Typically, we don't meet in July. Typically, July's a busy time with getting back into school. So I was thinking we would skip July and go into August, but that's completely up to our discretion.
July has 5 Thursdays in it, so it would be either
Four.
24th or 31st if we did.
Let me pull up the calendar here, and it's not letting me pull up the calendar.
Yeah.
here.
If everybody wants to do August, that's fine.
I'm out the 20th.
So the only thing about August, I don't know, it's like right around Labor Day. I don't know if
It
anybody
would be the
has.
Thursday before Labor Day.
Yeah, so that's something to keep in mind. I'm free either.
Not
both.
So I'm pulling up calendar here. July has 3 Thursdays. Oh, sorry, July has 5 Thursdays. We could do, if you wanted to do, completely up to you. We could do July and August. We could do July and skip August. July would either be the 24th or the 31st.
Well, we know you're shorthanded. If we do it in July, does that give you time to?
Don't schedule around me. It will not take us long to leverage Greg and Tom to get you that response. That's going to be relatively quick. If you'd like to keep momentum up and have another meeting in July, we'll do either the 24th or the 31st, whichever works better for y'all.
Preference?
I can only do the 31st. I can do the 20th.
I'm good with whatever.
24th?
31st, she said. Keisha.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's right.
The 31st is good.
Yeah. Do we want to meet in July and
We
then
do
see?
July and skip August?
Maybe,
Yeah.
because that's
Yeah.
usually when schools go back around
They go
Right.
back at the beginning of August.
beginning of August, that's right.
Yeah, so I think either one.
We're doing July and skipping August?
So I think there's some flux and stuff on the schedule. So let's shoot for July 31st, and then if we
That's-
can't do it, then we bump it to
That's exactly what I was
August.
going to say.
Yep.
Let's plan on
That
July,
sounds great.
and we don't have to decide August until we have
Right.
our July meeting.
Right, super,
All right.
great.
Can
Motion
I-
for
Yeah,
adjournment?
can I have a motion to adjourn? All right, Brian, and can I have a second?
Second.
Keisha, anyone opposed? All right, we're good.
All right.
Thank you,
Rob.
everyone.
Thank you.
Brian.
With your big
Oh,
new fancy
Brian.
job, don't
John?
forget about us.
I know.
Can I have your signature in my
We'll tell your
book?
story.
Oh, excellent. Thank you.
Your daughter.
I never answered
What
your
did she
question
decide
earlier on Emily.
about
Oh, yeah.
residency?
Oh, so she's, we dropped her off about 2.5 weeks ago at Mass General.
Oh, great.
in Boston.
Wonderful.
And so,
Thank
and then she,
Subdivided.
in dermatology.
What are
in
they
St.
doing?
Louis.
I feel like I should know this. What are they doing at Bethany?